This is Cash Miller. I'm the host of Marketing Masters, CEO of Titan Digital. And today we're going to be talking e-commerce websites. E-commerce, of course, over the last decade plus has grown dramatically. I mean, we think e-commerce, we think of Amazon and now, Walmart.com and things like that. But for small and mid-sized businesses, e-commerce is huge. There's all sorts of companies that are online that you can buy products from and such. And if you are a company that is looking to sell, online, your site is the hub. It's the thing that's going to matter the most. I've got Kathryn Smith with me, Walton Birch. She is a e-commerce specialist, especially when it comes to Shopify sites, which, if you haven't figured it out yet, Shopify is like the most popular platform out there when it comes to e-commerce because it's so easy to set up. Kathryn, it's great to have you on the show. Tell us a bit about yourself and your agency.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. So, yes, I'm the founder of Walton Birch. We are a web development and digital marketing business agency, and we work with all sorts of clients, but definitely lots and lots of Shopify stores. So we're based outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and we are a fully remote team. So,
Yeah. E-commerce over the last, let's say every year we hear about how people are shopping more and more online and everything's getting shipped and stuff. And, there are so many things that you can do, with your e-commerce sites now, whether it's a Shopify or if it's a WordPress site that's, built with like WooCommerce or some other integration. You could have BigCommerce. There's a number of things, but I want to start with, if you are a business that you're taking yourself online or you're looking to make improvements. Okay. So you've maybe been selling, you have an e-commerce website and stuff. Because a lot of people, when they, get started, they might not have the best site out the gate, something that's like really doing everything. So if you're thinking of, setting up an online store or doing a redesign, what would be some of the key considerations, things that you really need to be thinking about up front before you get started to make sure your project goes well. And also that final site is going to be, effective. It's going to be really good at its job.
yeah, that's a great question, and I don't actually get that question a lot. I think when it comes to e-commerce, a lot of people are like, "Oh, just if we build it, they will come. We can just throw up a website online.
Yeah, right.
People are going to come beating down our doors to come buy our product." And a lot of people can tell you that that's not exactly how it goes. And so whether you're a solopreneur who is just starting, you're making your products in your kitchen somewhere and you're selling them online, or, you are an established brick and mortar business or an established business that has lots of products, has lots of SKUs, and you're thinking, how can we transition this to an online presence? I think definitely structuring those projects and thinking about putting a little bit of intention into how you create an online presence is important. So yes, the actual website, the nuts and bolts building and coding is important, but also branding is extremely important when you're thinking about building a website. So who are you speaking to from a branding perspective? Who are your clients? Who are your customers? What issues and problems do they have? What are they looking for when they're searching for things online? And I think having an idea of those types of things when you're going into a website project is really important, because you can more effectively guide your developers or your development team when you have an idea of your branding and of your clients and customers.
Well, definitely the branding, you want to understand, what they're looking at. We've developed a lot, number of e-commerce sites over the years and stuff. And e-commerce sites are always more complicated. There's a lot more you can do, but, and you've probably heard this at some point, people come to you and say, I want to do something like Amazon. And it's like, things like that. And I'm like, okay, if you have, millions of dollars, sure. It's so you have to think of like, you know, look around at different sites. E-commerce has a lot of functionality. There's a lot of things you can do, but also it's a lot of time. It's a lot of, you have to understand, a business owner, I think often they don't understand how much time and work and skill is necessary to be able to do what they want,
Mhm.
because you can have like, I guess let's go through like levels of functionality, like, the basic up to, hey, we could make it do the XYZ. So on the low end, and like I say, you deal with Shopify, which is often a great starter point for a lot
Mhm.
of people. You know, so you know, throw that into the equation a bit of if you were brand new, where should you start? And then as you progress, what could you end up doing?
Oh, yeah, that's a big question. I could talk for the rest of the day about that question. So, as you mentioned, I do think Shopify is a good entry point for e-commerce. So, if you are not familiar with e-commerce at all, or if you've been selling on a marketplace, so if you've been selling your products somewhere else like Etsy or Amazon or eBay or something like that, and you want to have less fees, basically. I
Mhm.
think a Shopify is a really good entry point for that. Shopify sites are incredibly easy to set up. I think they're easy to manage for solopreneurs, for people that are operating by themselves, or for a small team. I think the basic Shopify plan has 2 staff seats, I believe, and you can, of course, grow from there. That said, there's a reason that a lot of starter Shopify sites look the same. They all look the same. You can tell
Mm,
when it's a Shopify site because they all look the same. And that is because most, merchants, most new, store owners, they're not developers, they're not designers.
right.
So the Shopify site is very basic. It looks like every other Shopify site, and you're like, "Oh, okay, cool. You got 6 products," and people spend about 10 seconds on the website, and then they hop
Yeah.
off, which is not great, for a lot of reasons. So, I think, absolutely start where you can. I wouldn't say don't build the website if you don't think that it could be perfect. I wouldn't advise that for people, but definitely, start where you can, but put some thought into how do you make your site look different from other sites? Like, how do you make it more engaging,
Mhm.
easier to navigate, and not look so plain and basic and boring? A lot of that is in really great product photos, and some extra pages kind of added to the site, like landing pages to give your customers information about your products. And so like I said, I wouldn't say don't start if you can't do it perfectly, but start with the basic for sure. But definitely look to add on those advanced touches that kind of provide a better customer experience, provide a better experience for people visiting your site, for people that are looking for your products, want to learn more about your products, and of course that want to buy your products. So again, Shopify, super good entry level site, and you can actually make Shopify sites more complex as well. So there is a lot of flexibility built into Shopify websites. And they're actually introducing a lot of new features that kind of allow you to do more with Shopify websites. So I think in the very near future, you will be able to build an entirely custom site on Shopify's platform. But that's definitely not going to be, the people that are coming
Yeah.
directly off of Etsy and Amazon are not going to be able to do that. So I think Shopify is a great platform to grow with, as well. But like I would highly recommend that people just kind of get started and then just be thinking about, how can I take this to the next level? How can I stand out from all the other people with these basic Shopify stores? How can I create a better experience for my customers?
Yeah. So Shopify, we've often recommended the platform in the past and stuff, and it kind of depends on the project scope, what they're thinking. So you're right, in that it is a beginner level because they have templates, they have, ways that you can set up your store yourself. What we always like about it is the fact that they can manage their own products. So thinking through like levels, the first, level that, you might do if you're, like I say, if you're thinking, okay, I want to have an e-commerce store is to set up a Shopify site, use the templates and stuff that they offer and get something going, get started. Now, when, a lot of times when somebody like us or yourself come in, like I know you build a lot of WordPress and that's what we end up doing and Shopify can be integrated, but what we have is more control over the design.
Mhm.
We can do a lot more and then we can still integrate the Shopify store, into that WordPress website. So you can still, as a client, as the business owner, you don't have to come to us to change your products and things like that. It's you still do it the way you normally do it. So when you're like thinking of that first level of upgrade, yeah, well, an integration can be the way to go. For businesses that are just they're coming along a bit more. They want to improve the actual design, of the site, and then we're able to put in, in the Shopify integration. Now this is also the case for other, uh, shopping platforms similar to Shopify. You can do integrations also. So, like I say, think of it as a stepping stone, to be able to go to, phase one. Now we're in phase two, and then we go to phase three. Um, Shopify, of course, is not the only platform. There's other platforms that are out there and such. Do you have a few that you typically recommend, that people take a look at as well?
Absolutely. It really depends on what you're selling, what industry you're in specifically. There are some industries where a Shopify website is not going to be ideal. Currently, those are what I would call high risk or what they would call regulated industries.
Mhm.
So guns and weapons, adult
Yeah,
industry, cannabis, things like that. They tend to run into some challenges with Shopify and the Shopify ecosystem just because of their kind of terms of use.
yeah,
And so that's where I would recommend a different solution, something that's a little bit more open, like a BigCommerce. And so the industry is definitely a consideration. The kind of level of technical skill that you have going into the project and whether you want
yeah,
to do it yourself or have someone completely do it for you is another consideration. If you have a product that you're making yourself, you want to run your store yourself, I think Shopify is a great solution for that. If you want to build in a custom theme with extensive customizations, I still think Shopify is a good option, but you're absolutely going to need a developer. Basically, every platform out there is introducing an e-commerce type element. So Shopify is kind of like the entry level, low budget type option, but they do go up from there. So everybody has an e-commerce option. Wix has an e-commerce option.
yeah,
GoDaddy has an e-commerce option. Everybody's building out an e-commerce option, and so it really just depends on your budget, the level of time, energy, and effort that you personally want to put into the site, and whether you have support for adding new products or
yeah,
updating products or running marketing campaigns from within the store, and what your various platform offers from there. But in terms of like my favorites, I'll say. Like, so my favorite is clearly Shopify. I know I'm clearly biased. I want to just make sure everybody knows I'm
well,
biased just because it's really super easy to use and it's very flexible. However, I do work with clients that are already on WordPress. So if you've had a WordPress site, like I have a client right now that's had a WordPress site since 2008, it has a lot of content on it, and moving her content or moving her website from a hosted option like WordPress to either a Shopify or Wix would definitely impact her domain authority because either that content gets left behind or it gets
yeah,
moved. And that's a huge challenge for businesses that are well established, like they've been around since 2008 and 2009. And so that's when you want to look at, to your point, one of those integrations or some sort of hybrid option. But that's definitely probably not something that like the average business owner is going to be able to implement themselves. They're definitely going to need a little bit of help from a development
yeah.
perspective.
Well, you make a good point too. So when we, go back to what are some of the key considerations, that if you're going to do an e-commerce site, one is how much are you going to be able to be involved? How much support are you going to need? How much control over the site do you want? From the standpoint of like product updates and things like that. That's where Shopify can come in really good. But like you mentioned, um, if you were to go a Shopify or another system like that, you're going to be married to it though. So, if you want to make a change, like you're stuck with that as the provider. That's the problem. So, in the case of like uh, WordPress, you could do WooCommerce as far as your actual integration, and then you're not married to a particular platform, because it's built into the site itself. So if you wanted to move the site, you still have total control. So you have to consider, how much do you want to be married? Because if Shopify, let's say if the layouts are more simplified, and eventually you need something that's you want a bit more complicated look to it essentially. I always give the example of like, when you're using like product images and things like that, that, years ago we did a WooCommerce site for a bat company. And they made wooden bats, and the bats could be changed on colors and stuff like that. And there was and you want they wanted almost like modeling, so that you could kind of like spin, the bat around. You could look at it, and a lot of products are that way, where you can see the different, that product at different angles, get a true sense of the product itself. And so when you want to start getting into that kind of functionality, it's hard for a platform like Shopify, to be able to get those things, because you don't have as much flexibility. They don't have as many options.
Well, I push back on that just a little bit. So, Shopify recently released Hydrogen, which is their new kind of, I'm going to call it a framework. It's not really a platform. It is a framework for building out Shopify websites. So if you are a basic merchant on Shopify and you do not code, just stop listening right now. However, like, if you're a developer, or if you have like a larger Shopify website, like maybe a brick and mortar with a Shopify, like what Shopify is doing with Hydrogen is going to be very important and significant in the very near future. So they're building out, basically, it's called a headless kind of implementation. And so, to your point, where headless just means that you can install it in other places. So you might be able to run a Shopify website from within a WordPress website in the very near future. Like, it's very new.
Yeah,
I
right now
haven't
you
even personally given it, I haven't
yeah,
taken it for a run just yet, but that's the premise of headless websites. Like, you can just, the integration is seamless. So
yeah.
I think there will be a lot more flexibility with that in the future.
Well, that's
However,
good.
that is a distinct uh, differentiation. That's a divergence from kind of Shopify as this DIY platform. That is not
Yeah,
a
so
DIY solution.
yeah, no, it's a more advanced solution, but it is tackling those issues where previously you could not do that with a Shopify site. So that's great, that you can, but you're still going to need help to do it. So
Oh,
now it's got the
absolutely.
functionality. Like I
Absolutely.
said, the plus of a Shopify or other systems is that they're fairly simplistic in the sense of updating things. Not how the things are displayed, but adding new products and things like that. They've made it so that anybody can do it. And that's the nice thing about that kind of stuff. That's
Right.
like I say, when we have somebody and that they say, hey, I just want to be able to do, these things, like, okay, that's perfect. We'll do a Shopify integration. You can, set up your Shopify account. We'll walk you through how to do it, and you'll manage everything from there. You'll pay from, Shopify. A lot of people, I mean, they make the most of their money on processing transactions and things. The more they help you sell, the more they make, that way. It's a really smart business model, that there's so many things for you.
Hmm.
Uh, so that's why we've always liked that. And like, if you get into a WooCommerce site or some of the other more advanced, platforms, they can get complicated. Is the
Yeah.
thing. Like WooCommerce we like it because it's got a ton of functions that you can, plugins that you can buy and add features, and WooCommerce itself, you just install. That part's the free thing, because all of the stuff that you may want to use is what's going to cost you.
Absolutely.
So there's a consideration there. So if Shopify is, you know, making a more robust version, you know, even if you need a developer, well, for WooCommerce, you would need a developer too, but it can save you having to buy, plugins can get, expensive depending on what feature you want.
Right,
Right?
right. So I still like Shopify for kind of the simplicity of the ecosystem. So they still host the websites, even though on Hydrogen you would be able to host it somewhere if you would have the option to be able to do that. But they still host the website. Like, all of the things that come with Shopify are still kind of built into that. So you still can upload your products. They still have marketing features built in. There's still basic themes built in there. They still do a great job of handling security. So a lot of the
Yes.
concerns that I hear from WordPress sites are just
Yep.
security. And because WordPress sites are like, you can bring your own host, which is a good thing. If your host is kind of sketchy, like, that can present
Yeah.
challenges to the security of your website. So in terms of complexity, Shopify websites are very simple. As you want more customization for your site, you can definitely use another platform like a WordPress, but that is where you'll have to keep in mind that the complexity will increase, and you'll have to worry about things like security. Like,
Yeah. Well,
But if you have a good development team, that's not an issue. You got somebody else looking out for, watching your back and keeping an eye on your site and making sure everything is running
yeah.
smoothly. So
Well,
not DIY
security.
friendly though.
Yeah, well, security is a really good point too. Of course, everybody, people go after WordPress, sites and stuff, and you can really secure them. But you got to have somebody that knows what they're doing to be able to do that. So it's not,
Absolutely.
if you're going to do e-commerce and you're going to collect credit card, information and stuff, setting up something on your own on WordPress is not necessarily going to be the smartest idea because of the information you're collecting. Whereas if you integrate Shopify or you build it on their platform and use a template or whatever, they're handling those transactions. They're securing, credit card data and everything. And that really matters. I mean,
Mhm.
a lot of hackers target small business websites and stuff all the time. Now, they're not, in some cases, yeah, they could see hey, this is an e-commerce site. They may have, credit card data and stuff on the back end. So that makes them a legitimate, target for a hacker to go after. So security is a huge concern on how it's handled. And so do it yourself. It's not the greatest idea when it comes to e-commerce because people make those mistakes, of collecting that kind of information. We have I don't know about you, but our standard practice, and this is just, not just e-commerce, but forms in general and everything. We work with a lot of insurance agencies and stuff, and they want to collect information like social security numbers and stuff. And we have a standing rule that no, that is the rule. No.
Just no.
Yeah. Yeah. If they ask us to do that, we'll say, look, we can set up your forms and stuff for everything, but we will not collect that kind of information, because we host a ton of sites and such, and we refuse. We say, look, if you're going to use some sort of outside platform, and we're linking over to it or we're, integrating it, but we're not storing it, that's fine. But if you're going to ask us to store it, the answer is going to be no every single time. And there's no reason you can give me for it, for me to change my mind, because I'm looking at it as a standpoint of it's a vulnerability for you and us.
Right.
Okay. And I don't want the responsibility. And honestly, you shouldn't want it either.
Yeah, not in insurance.
Yeah. And so you have to consider that with e-commerce,
Mhm.
again, credit card information, hackers, all the time. And I just can't even imagine a small business having to go back to, a couple of hundred clients or something and say, yeah, we were hacked and we've given up, your credit card and stuff. You may want to cancel it. I mean, we hear about
Yeah,
big companies all the time, but it
right.
doesn't mean it doesn't happen about, to small companies.
Right, and but, like, I don't want small companies to kinda shy away from e-commerce, based on that, and when I s so that's another excellent point to bring up. So e-commerce isn't just selling products online, so it's not just like, "Oh, I sell T-shirts or soap," like my
Hmm.
site's an e-commerce site. Attorneys can have e-commerce sites, insurance agents can have e-commerce sites, any kind of service
Yeah.
provider can have an e-commerce site. It's really just a site that sensitive information is passed back and forth, and money, of course, is
Yeah.
passed back and forth. And so, I wouldn't, have people kind of shy away from
No.
having a site where they, provide services because a lot of people are like, oh, it's not secure. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to make people come into the office to sign paperwork, and that's
Yeah.
not really a great customer experience. I do think that
Yeah.
you can differentiate yourself as a service provider if you have a really smooth online experience. But to your
Mhm.
point, security is definitely a
Yeah.
concern. So I think the differentiating between storing that information on your website and integrating a third party that
Yeah.
has security built in and is taking responsibility
Yes.
for the security of that
I'm good
information
with.
is incredibly important.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm good with third parties and
yeah,
stuff, that's fine. Because the thing is they know they're collecting that kind of information, so my expectation is their security should be top notch. It's
absolutely.
not and nothing's perfect because like I said, we've seen, giant companies get hacked for that kind of information and the government and, you name it. But the expectation still is that they know what they're doing and they're going to guard it religiously and such, and
Mhm.
that's what I want them to do, in which
Yep.
case that's where the third party, because most processing, even if you're building WooCommerce or something, you're integrating like a Stripe payment portal or something.
Mhm.
Well, they're securing the information.
Yep.
So it's how the information is secured, the information you're going to collect, these are all considerations, right?
Mhm.
But
Yep.
yeah, don't deter from wanting to do it, just be aware. And this is why I don't like for e-commerce, if you're doing it yourself on Shopify, no problem, because
Yeah,
they're going to take care of that.
they've
If you're
handled
going to
all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to build your own WooCommerce site and you're not a developer, that's going to be a little bit different because it's a bit more challenging, and that's where you really should hire an expert to help you,
Yeah, because you
do
you would
that.
have to learn all of the things. Like a lot of the things that Shopify is taking care of for its clients are like you would never know that that is a thing that you needed to worry about as a business owner because it's already been taken care of. For DIY solutions, you absolutely need to understand like what are the security and privacy laws, especially if you're selling globally or dealing with traffic that is coming from global sources. So it absolutely requires a little bit, actually, not even a little bit, it's a lot more education, a lot more research, and time and consideration in terms of how to set up that website. So, I mean, the more complex the website, that's where I would absolutely recommend bringing in an expert, bringing
Mhm.
in people who have done this, people who work with some of these platforms and integrations and not doing it yourself because the risk is so high. So just imagine what would happen if you had to tell all of your customers, "Hey,
Yeah.
so we lost your information a little bit." Like
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
please,
That's a
change your
nightmare
credit card number.
scenario.
Yeah, like
Yeah, total nightmare if that was to happen. What are some of the other, like, critical functions, that e-commerce sites, that is gonna be necessary to take into account if you're gonna set something up or do a redesign or anything?
right. Well, security obviously is the first one. Just making sure the all points that lead to the website are secure, whether that is, the actual payment or customer information processing parts of the site, or logins. Like if you have employees or contractors that no longer have access to the site, do they still have logins and are those secured? So those are incredibly important as well. From a functionality perspective. And then so once the actual functionality, the security and functionality is kind of out of the way, then you can talk about the look and feel and the customer experience. So the I get a requests a lot from people that are saying, "Listen, like my website is not functioning very well. Like I'm not getting
Mhm.
traffic. People aren't making purchases. What can I do about that?" And that's where after you talk about the functionality, just be
Yeah,
clear, after you've gotten out of the way the functionality and security, then you can talk about the experience. So what does the navigation look like? What does the content on the website look like? That's where you start talking about things like search engine optimization or local search engine optimization as well. And then, of course, the redesign. So I know designers are just going to shoot me for this, but like, like, the design of the website is just one part of a
yeah,
large ecosystem of things that creates an experience for a customer or client that helps to instill trust in your brand or your product for them, and also helps them to actually buy it online. So design is cool and all,
yeah. No, there's
but the actual functionality, the navigation is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Then that's more user experience, user
Mhm.
interface design as well. So once the website is up and running, once you've gotten past step one, which would be build the site, put the
Mhm.
products on it, have it up for a while and then tell people that it exists, because that's another thing that people fail to do. They build websites, but they don't tell people that they exist. And so they don't see the performance of for the website. But once you've done all of that, then you can say, all right, well, the site's up and running, and I'd like to see what the next level looks like. I'd like to take this to the next level. What does that look like? That's where you're looking at things like search engine optimization. That's where you're looking at things like they call it conversion rate optimization, making other changes to your website that make it easier to navigate, that make the content easier to find. And that's when you start, in my opinion, that you start talking about paid advertisement and paid search as well. So there are a lot of options from that perspective. But I am the web developer, so we will build the website for you. We will optimize the website for you, and then we will hand you off to a team like yours that can
Yeah.
handle all of the marketing, options that kind of come along with that after the actual website is up and running and functional. So I think that would be the second level. If this were college, it's not the 101, it's like the 201 or the
Yeah, 201, yeah.
301 option for e-commerce websites.
Yeah. One thing I'd add in there too is customer portals because often like websites you don't have to register as a customer and create a customer account. You can just make the purchase as a one-time deal and stuff. But if you want to be able to collect that information, if you want to be able to market to them afterwards, email marketing, things like that, you want to be able to, give them the option of doing a customer account of their own. But you have to consider that experience too, because when if you have repeat purchases, they could come back, for something different, but allowing them to like track history, see, past orders and stuff, things like that, really matter and what that looks like. And that's not an external piece they're going to see. They've got to register the account. So you want to consider, what do I want to do with those people that end up on the site that make a purchase? How am I going to market to them afterwards? Do I want them, to push them towards, creating their own account? And then if I do get them to do that, what's that going to look like on the other end too? And what kind of information are we going to be willing to store? There's, like I say, there's so much, so many details, that we have to deal with. And, you do have like, these things are journeys, we've done, and they're e-commerce, anything that takes a payment is basically an e-commerce site of some sort. We've done education sites where online learning courses, things like that. And you have the same thing. You have a customer portal, you have like classes that you might have, signed up for. And even those things you have to consider, okay, what does that the individual sign up look like in their journey of taking the course, but seeing your history, so you have to always consider the display of information. How, like I say, it's not all just the design, like you were saying. It's how do we display the information? What kind of imagery? You mentioned earlier too, product imagery. So how important, if you're going to be an e-commerce site, you should have product imagery, of course. How important is it for that imagery to be really good? And
I can't even express how important it is. And I know that people have heard these stories of where they go on certain discount websites and they buy something that they think is a great deal, and it turns out to
Mhm.
be a miniature of that item.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, they think they're getting the full size, and they bought a
It's
small
like
model of it.
yes. That's where things like product photos and product dimensions on product pages are incredibly important. So I'm not shaming any platforms out there, but just, think about those experiences. And that's where people are very, very skeptical of what they see online. So, and if you think about some of these larger marketplace platforms, they provide that. They will literally show you what the chair looks like in your house. They will show you
Oh
what the
yeah,
glasses look like on your face. Like
yeah,
and people have come to kind of expect that type of product interaction on product pages, but those integrations actually make that a lot more accessible to your basic Shopify and WooCommerce websites. So definitely look for those solutions out there. So take excellent product photos, but also thinking about providing videos, like product videos or
yeah,
360 tours, or those like kind of AI generated options where you can see a product in your room or like on your dog, or like view your glasses on your face, things like that. Because
yeah.
customers really want to know what they are getting when they are paying for this product. And with e-commerce being as it is, there are lots of similar products available online. So I think though having really good product media helps differentiate your product from a lot of other similar products that might be out there on the market.
Yeah, actually, those are some good points you made, because something I'd add in there, because you're saying, make sure that they know everything about the product and stuff, because I think of Amazon personally. I mean, if you actually look at the product page, there's a zillion details on those things. Yeah, but one of the things also that Amazon is really good at, that but anybody can incorporate, is soliciting product reviews
Mhm.
for the site. You get an Amazon product, after they know it's been delivered, they will send you a request to do a review on that particular product and such, and they'll even have it like verified purchase and such. So having people talk about your products, and you can solicit them. Like I say, if they've created accounts or not, you still got email addresses, and you can say, hey, how did you like the product? Can you please provide feedback here? Well, you can do that kind of stuff, because that's what people want. They want as much information about stuff as they can get.
Yep.
So, like I say, because otherwise they don't end up buying something that's a miniature, version of it. What would be your last points of emphasis if you're going to be, putting together an e-commerce site for your business?
So just do your homework, do your research. I don't want to deter people from getting started in e-commerce, but I do want them to understand what situation they're going into. So whether you're literally starting a business from your home, and it's going to be an online only business, or whether you are a brick and mortar and you want to extend the operating hours of your store by starting an online presence, or whether you are a large brand that wants to provide products online, just do your research, understand what goes into it from a security perspective, from a design and experience perspective, and from a time and commitment and budget perspective. So just so you understand what you're getting, and you can ask intelligent questions when you talk to people like me and developers to say,
Mhm.
hey, I really like this site. I'd like to do something like that. Or, hey, is this going to take me, like 15 hours a week to manage? Is this something that I can do, for 5 hours a week and have it be successful? So just understand what you're getting into, understand what your options are, understand what your legal burdens are for like
Mm.
privacy and
Yep.
security, especially in regulated industries or high risk industries.
Yeah.
Understand what those risks are and what the compliance and reporting around that is, and of course, like taxes. Like,
Yeah.
be,
Oh,
so basically, be
that's
a
a
good
whole,
business person.
yeah, there's a whole
Like,
different discussion right there. You know?
yeah, so like I can definitely help you with the website, but there's so many times where I've encountered people that are just like, "Wait, we have to pay taxes on this?" And they don't, like there's a lot. In several states you have to apply for like a sales tax number, and
Mhm.
you have tax nexuses in different states, and the reporting requirements are different for those. And so like I'm a developer. Like, my
Yeah.
business consulting only goes so far. So that's where, as a business owner, it really helps if you kind of come to the table understanding, what's necessary from a compliance perspective, because we don't want your store to get shut down in
Yeah.
year one because you've forgotten to, pay your taxes or to
Yeah. Right.
file your taxes. And so I just, educate yourself, see what's out there online, see, what you need from a security, a compliance reporting perspective, find out, what the time and monetary commitments would be, and then get good help.
Yeah. There you go. So this has been great, Catherine. How would people get a hold of you, to be able to discuss, e-commerce websites?
Sure. So my website is waltonbirch.com. That's WALTONBIRCH.com. We are in the middle of revamping that, but it'll be updating over the course of the next few weeks. But that's the best way to get in touch with me, and we'll have some new content up there soon.
Okay, well, this has been great. I'm Cash Miller, the host of Marketing Masters, CEO of Titan Digital. We've been talking e-commerce sites with a heavy emphasis on Shopify here, yeah, which is a great platform to if you're just getting started in the space. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.